Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Will Motivation, and I'm back with part 2 of my 3-part series, with the first part being, I started it out calling it how much money I made in my 20s, but I changed the title because I don't know, felt a little bit uncomfortable with that title, so I changed it to my advice for my subscribers that are in their 20s. And it was going to be the first of a 3-part series where I talked about what I did in my 20s, what I did in my 30s, and what I started to do in my 40s to get to where I am right now. The whole purpose of this video series is to basically share my experience in life in order to help someone achieve the success that they want to achieve as fast as possible, because I didn't really have anybody to tell me the steps that I needed to take in order to get to where I am right now. I had to kind of figure it out. So it took me a little bit longer to get here, right? But I figure there's some of you out there that are go-getters, that you see me driving the Lamborghini Huracan, you see me driving the Aventador back there, and you wonder how you can get there yourself. And so this series is to try to help you learn kind of what it took from one guy's perspective, some random dude on the internet who's willing to kind of be transparent and share with you. All right, let's go. Motivation.
That's right.
Welcome to Will Motivation. Holla.
Okay, so let's get into what I did in my 30s to kind of get to where I am today. Now, if you missed part 1, I will put a link in the description of this video so you can kind of catch up on the first part of this series, which is what I did in my 20s, and then this will make sense, starting off on what I did in my 30s. But just to kind of recap real quick, in my 20s, I finished college. I started corporate America. I was making 35 grand a year. I figured that wasn't enough for me to get some of the things I wanted to get in life and some of the things I wanted to achieve and experience. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. So I job hopped a little bit. I became a consultant. I got a big raise and went from $35,000 a year to a few years later making $75,000 a year. And then I started a business after trying to start a business several times. I finally got a business that I kind of was passionate about. It didn't make any money in my 20s, but I knew it was something that I wanted to dedicate myself to. So that's when I came out of my 20s. I came out of my 20s where I had a salary increase. I ended up making about $85,000 a year going into my 30s, but I had a side business that I wanted to work on to try to bring it to life. Okay, so that's the recap for part 1, but you definitely want to check that out because I'm real transparent. I'm just telling you sort of my life story and experiences. But let's get into my 30s. Okay, so one thing I didn't really mention is when I was in my 20s, not only did I buy my first house, but I also got married when I was like 20, I think I was 26 when I got married. And I had 2 kids. And so I was married with 2 kids, and I had a full-time job. My ex-wife, she also worked a job as well. So what I had going on, and some of you guys can relate to this, and you might think it's sort of impossible sometimes to not only hold down a 9-to-5, but also start a side business and then also manage a family. But I'm here to tell you that it is possible. You're just gonna have to sleep as little as possible and just organize your time really well, because here's what my schedule looked like in my 30s. Juggling a family, juggling a full-time job, and also juggling a new business. What it looked like is I would wake up in the morning, probably around 8 o'clock to 8:30, get ready. I would go to my corporate job, Like I said, I was making 85 grand a year at the corporate job. So I was real, happy and felt blessed to have that job. So it wasn't something that I hated. It was something that I was appreciative of, right? So I go to my job, 9 to 5, literally go to work at 9. I come home about 5:30. And then when I came home, my kids were little. They were like toddlers and, little babies when this was going on. So when I came home, my ex-wife would go to work and then I would have to take over with the kids. So from 5:30 in the evening, every single day, Monday through Friday, 5:30 until bedtime for my kids, which was usually around 9 o'clock or 9:30, I would have to take care of my kids, get them whatever they needed, cook dinner for them, watch a little TV with them, play with them or whatever they wanted to do. And then it was bedtime for them. And so my schedule after they went to bed, from 9:30 at night till about 3 o'clock in the morning, every single night I was working on my business. Literally every single day, Monday through Friday. My kids went to bed, I went and got on the computer and I started writing computer software to build out my data-driven website, which is, like I said in the first part of the series, it was a social networking website. It was a brand new concept. The only social networks that were online were these, there was a website called classmates.com. There was a website called blackplanet.com. There was a website called mihente.com that came a little bit later. And then there was one called Asian Avenue. I think that was actually like the first real social network. It was targeting like Asian Americans or Asians that came to America. It was like an English speaking website for Asians. And they had the same idea that I had. And we pretty much started at the same time. And then right around that same time, MySpace came out. And then a few years later, in my 30s, Facebook came out. And then LinkedIn came out. So those were my competitors. Those were the websites that, kind of popped up and I had to kind of deal with, my network and my users going over to Facebook. Like when they first started, only college students could go into Facebook. So like I had to spy on some college students to figure out what was going on with Facebook. And eventually, they became a strong social network. But I had the idea, like a lot of people ask me, how come I didn't take my social network and create Facebook? Because I wrote all the software to do like all that basic social networking functionality. I had that same software and I built it from scratch. And mine was probably more advanced than Facebook when Facebook first came out. And the reason why is because I knew I couldn't compete with somebody in Silicon Valley that could get millions of dollars in venture capital and hire, hundreds of programmers to work on a social network. So I figured I would stay in the niche that I had already dominated, which was the historically black college and university space. And that's what I was passionate about. And I figured if anybody tried to come in that space, I had a competitive advantage. Like I knew not only the technology, but I also knew the mindset of the people that would be using this type of website. So anyway, I had a few competitors that came along. I bought my biggest competitor, like I bought their company eventually, like around 2006. But anyway, let me tell you guys what happened. So my routine, what I was working on from every night, 9 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning, I was working on my website. I would go to bed. On the weekends, we would do the family time thing. And then Saturday night and Sunday during the day sometimes, I was working on my website. And I was working on it 365 days a year because I was super, super passionate and almost obsessed with building this thing out to turn it into something. And it was working. We were the first site listed on Yahoo. Before Google was even around, we had Yahoo on lock, with the search terms and stuff that we were working with. But anyway, I kept building like that. I would go to do the 9 to 5. And so I gave that 9 to 5 4 years. And then the company started to go down. So I worked for this company called AT&T Bell Labs. They split the company up, and I ended up in this part of the company that was called Lucent Technology. Some of you guys might remember it. But Lucent Technologies, the stock shot up and everybody was excited because we had all these geniuses and software engineers working for the company. But then the stock shot down and we started like losing money. And it seemed like all the leadership wanted to do was close the company down and like shrink it down to nothing. And I used to have dreams about it. Like I remember one time I had a dream that I was falling out of the sky, and I didn't have a parachute on that I knew about, but I started reaching for a ripcord for a parachute. And even though I didn't have a parachute on, by me reaching, eventually I caught something that felt like a ripcord and I pulled it, and then the parachute opened up. And I started, and I was like, good. And that dream signified to me that, like me, that reaching that I was doing, if you keep reaching, you might not see the parachute there, but if you reach for it, you might just have it. But you got to reach for it in order for the parachute to shoot open, right? And I kind of, for me, that was like a symbol for what I was doing with my work. I didn't have any money. So there was no money there, but I was reaching and building, and I was trying to make something happen in hopes that an opportunity would come with that business to where I could actually monetize it and then potentially run that business as my full-time job. And so what happened, after 2 years of grinding on the website, I started to get these employers that would come in and say, hey, we like what you've done. You built a social network of this audience. We would like to advertise on your website. And after enough of those people started calling me when I was at work and asking could they advertise, I started giving them little packages, and I started selling a little bit of advertising, made a little bit of money in affiliate marketing through the website, through email marketing, and built one of the first large scale email databases when I built out my website. So, so I started making a little bit of money. Like year one, which was probably like 2001, I probably made $5,000. And then year two, like I built this career center on the website. So it was like one of the first career centers online for online job search and online resumes and all of that good stuff, like monster.com, career builder, that kind of thing. LinkedIn, really. It was just like that. I built that out on my Christmas break. I took two weeks off of work, and madman in the basement, I was on the computer building out the code for that. So I built it, and then the next year I started making money from recruitment advertisers that were trying to recruit people, and they liked my audience. They started spending money, and so I went from 5,000 in 2001 to in 2002 it was probably like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't make money until 2002. 2003 I probably made a little bit more. I probably made, let's say, 8,000, and then 2004 I think maybe I started making 8,000 the first half of the year. They started letting people go at my company. And so what I did is I asked my boss, I said, hey boss, can you fire me instead of firing somebody else and just give me the package, the severance package? Because, when they give you a severance package after working there for 5-10 years, you get a lot of, enough money to live for 6 months or something like that. So they said, okay, let me think about it. They came back later and they denied me the severance because they wanted to keep me at the job and let somebody else go. But I was ready. At that point, I was ready to go. My dad was still alive. One of my best friends was also an entrepreneur. They were urging me to just go ahead and do it, go ahead and quit and run my business full time. So in 2004, after working for the company in the 9-to-5 for 4 years, right, and going into my 30s, I think I was about 32 when I quit. And I gave them 4 years. 2 of the years I made no money with my side business, and 2 of the years I made a little bit of money. But I figured if I went out and went hard full time, I could turn that little bit of money into enough to live off of, even though it was a major risk. But a lot of people say you step out on faith, and I had faith in my work ethic, and I had faith in what I was building and the value that I could provide to potential clients. So I quit. I got a little office space for $500 a month, which didn't make sense because I wasn't making that much money, I'm telling y'all. But I did it. I need a place to work from, and I just did it. I hired my sister. I hired my brother. I hired 2 dudes I used to work with at that company I just left. I hired my old college roommate, his sister, to do like a magazine for me. And that was all within 6 months. I hired all of those people and we all got into my that little office, and I told everybody, look, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm gonna do my best to always, we got the money coming in, I'm gonna pay you guys, but we all gotta eat off of this plate, you know what I mean? We all have to make this happen. And that's what happened. Like I started my company, and I was about, like I said, I quit my job, I was probably about 32 years old. And then in the rest of my 30s, I was grinding on my startup company, until the next phase, which was company started doing well. I saved up a little bit of money, and then it was time to start looking at investing in real estate. So this is how the real estate story starts. But I decided to start investing in real estate after my divorce. I wanted to move from an apartment that I bought to go through my divorce. Like I lived in an apartment for almost 2 years, and I wanted to move back into a house. But what I did is my kids and my ex-wife stayed in my old house, right? That was my first house. I bought a condo for myself to live in. After 2 years, I wanted to move into a bigger house into the neighborhood where I am now. Had some money saved up, but I wanted to sell my condo and then take the money from that and then use it as a down payment to get into the new house. But the market we went into a recession. So a lot of people ask me, how do you start investing in a recession? That's when I started learning how to invest in real estate, because we were in a recession and I wanted to sell my condo, but I was gonna take a 50 grand loss. And I only had the condo for 2 years and I was gonna lose 50 grand. So instead of me panicking and letting go of the house and losing the money, or selling it and losing the money, I said, you know what? I'm gonna keep it and I'm gonna rent it out, because I know it's worth more than that, right? I know it's worth every bit of what I paid for it. So I'm gonna hold that house, I'm gonna rent it out, I'm gonna let somebody else pay the mortgage, and then when that house is paid off, it'll pay like my new house, the next house off, or at least pay the taxes or some expenses, right? So I decided to keep that house, and then I moved into the new house. And with that money that I had saved up, my life savings from all the work I had done in my business, which really wasn't that much, for me being 37 years old, but it's probably more than most people have. But when you run a business, that amount of money you can run through in 6 months. So that's why I say it's not that much, because I have 12 employees. I was paying, the money was going, I was reinvesting to my business, trying to have a strong business, right? So anyway, instead of me reinvesting that money that I saved up back into my original business, I said, I'm gonna start another business, and I'm gonna get into real estate, and I'm gonna teach myself how to invest in real estate. And so I bought another house. I kept my 2 previous houses. I had also bought an office that I still have to this day. And I said, okay, I had 4 properties at that point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this 250 grand and I'm gonna invest it, and I'm gonna buy some real estate. So what did I do in my 30s? With that money, I bought 4 properties, and I bought them all in cash, which was not the smartest thing to do. But with the years coming after that, I learned how to leverage the bank's money in order to expand my real estate portfolio. So I started investing in real estate when I was 37 years old. And so at that point, I had 3 businesses, because I still had my first business, which was a social network. I started a software company, which was the software that I built for the social network, but I would use it to do websites for other people. They could just use my software, right? And that software will also make ad revenue, because I ran so many different websites. Then I started the 3rd business, which was the real estate business, when I was 37 years old. All right, so that's when I got started in real estate, which was about, like 8 years ago. So that's what happened in my 30s. I came out, my net worth, probably going towards the end of my 30s, was probably maybe $500,000 was probably what my net worth was. Not including my business, because my business, I had some offers. Like I had BET that wanted to buy my business. I had Radio 1 that wanted to buy my business. I had Viacom talk to me about buying my business. So that doesn't include whatever my business would have been worth, but I just didn't want to sell it. So anyway, that's the story of my 30s. a lot of hustle, a lot of grind. I can't, sometimes I look backwards, I don't know how I did it, but I was working. When I say I was working 365 days a year, I was doing it, and it wasn't, I was just on it. I was just passionate about it. I wanted to make stuff happen. I could see the future, how I wanted my future to be. And, I had little kids, and I wanted to make sure my kids would be, have what they needed. So in my 30s, I was grinding. So if you're in your 30s now, I don't know where you're at, but I didn't start investing into real estate until I was 37. And I got about 8 or 9 years in with the real estate investing, as its own business. And now I wasn't even thinking about Lamborghinis and stuff back then. But now I'm at the point where I got to the point with the real estate to where I could, start buying these toys and stuff. But before that, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was thinking about survival.
My name is William R. Moss III, middle name Roger. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I went to Hampton University, graduated with a degree in computer science in 1995. The biggest thing that stands out though in my college experience that kind of brought me to work with HBCU Connect and what we're doing here is the fact that I went with the intention of getting a degree from an accredited school, but at the same time being able to enjoy myself, which happened. I got a degree, came out, worked with Bell Labs, got some excellent experience there, but the whole Black college experience was a success. I am the CEO, president of HBCUconnect.com. What I do, I'd like to consider myself the lead visionary and kind of a pace setter for where we're going, when we're going to get there. I'm typically writing code to support some of the functionality of the site and to support some of the needs of our users and of our clients. So that's what I like to do. I like to roll up my sleeves and get technical and actually write software that powers the website. But I wanted to get in touch with my fellow alumni from Hampton University. That was really, the start of it. I ended up hooking up with Sean Starks, who worked with me at the time we went to high school together. He went to Kentucky State, and he wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to catch up with alumni from Kentucky State. Not just for Hampton or Kentucky State, but let's do it for all of the historically Black colleges and universities.